Preface, Second Edition. Professor Puran Singh needs no introduction as he is well known and much loved versatile poet and writer and enjoys a distinguished place in the field of literature. His writing skills is not only reflected in his Punjabi literary works, he also chose Hindi and English language as medium of expressions of his overwhelming divine thought. In celebrating his first birth century in 1981, Punjab University, Patiala decided to publish the unpublished works left by him. As a mark of tribute to him, and the first editions of Prakasina was presented by the Department of Punjabi Literary Studies to the readers as a token of great respect and love for this great son of Punjab. Professor Puran Singh was impressed and fascinated by the stories narrated by the storytellers about an ideal king named Jasmanji of Anardha, now known as Potohar, Thani and Hazara. Based on these ancient stories concerned with this region, the author created Prakasina. Though it is a love story of Princess Prakasina and Man Mahaji, it is enriched with mysticisms and highlights the highest principles of life. We see in this book how a man adopting these principles like love, honesty, justice, equality, humility, and getting religious minded turns from an ordinary human being into angelic personality. How they achieved transcendental state of mind where they could visualize their future and look into the past, where the phenomena of the individual souls meeting the departed divine souls appears to be very normal and natural. Through simple living and high thinking and leading ethical spiritual life, the people of Anarda created heaven on earth. This book inspires its readers to make the best of life and gain perfection. Such people are spiritually beautiful and helps creating a beautiful world. They are ever blissful here and hereafter. The Punjabi Literary Studies Department now takes pleasures in presenting its second editions to the readers. We hope it will be loved by them. Ajmer Singh, Professor and Head, Punjabi Literary Studies Department, Punjabi University, Patiala. Chapter 1st, The King in Disguise. Old days are gone, when the best of men were the kings, and the kings of men were the best of men, and the men knew life only in its sweet self-contentment, and its professions of gifts, and its bounteous abundance, so much so that the tillers of soils were the richest givers. They knew how to labor, to give, and to live in the goodwill of their ever watching king. Enough, they had plenty of land around the work at, a good number of cattle, and every farmer's hut was in itself a happy home of peace, prosperity, and rustic joy. Every farmer in himself was a little king, and his own heart and home a kingdom. The life in those good old days was spontaneously lyrical, and its unceremonious joys gathered in little fairs and festivals around the scattered hamlets and huts around the camp fires of the jungle nights, around the simple romance of truth and its artless naturalness. The king to the people was a sacred vicegerent of God on earth. The popular imaginations fondly invested him with the performance of miracles. He had undoubtedly the heavens' authority on his back, for those jewels of genius sparkled on his forehead, whose radiance compelled all moving things to submission. He was an unfailing magic of personality. The people knew him as their protector. With him in their mindset, they were safe. The honor of their mothers and daughters and bride was in his keeping. He would hold the scales even, for did he not sit in their eyes, holding the scales of justice? To them he was a God who constantly thought of their good and the good of their children's children. In fact, he was their temporal and spiritual masters, and their loyalty to him was of the noble rank of prayer and worship and faith and devotions. Death for his sake was a passion with them. His service was their religions, his pleasure was their life, his indifference death. In those golden days of rarity of human life, when there was more to give and take than the givers and the receivers thereof, when men met men as the flowers meet each other, laughing and perfuming, when a guest was a gift of heaven as if God Himself was on a visit to humble man, a story went round the campfires of the people that a certain king, in the grief of the death of his beloved queen, roams and discures, seeking her in the face of every woman, and feels consoled only when he sees 100 women faces every day. But the discourse is so perfect and sincere that no one had yet been able to see the king. One night, in a village about 10 kilometers from the capital of the kingdom of Anarda, the villagers were welcoming a guest, a sadhu, an elderly man about 40 years old, accompanied by a young disciple. They entered the village when the sun had just set, and it was the fair day of the village blaze. A big fire was lighted, and men and women and children had gathered to sing and to dance around the fire. The whole village welcomed the guests, and everyone ran to touch the feet of the sadhu. And everyone said, "Oh, how sweet!" as if by touching his feet they tasted something of exquisite flavor. The boisterousness of the joy of the assembled crowd changed into grave, respectful silence of a serene rapture. The sadhu came to the crowd as their night prayer. All eyes were closed in joy, tears fell, and all hearts were filled with ineffable bliss. The sadhu sat amidst them with his young disciple by his side, and the fire burnt before them, and the whole village sat around the sadhu. The scene was of an open-air temple whose deity had just been enshrined.